Nice.
Oh, sorry, I had to pause my music. I have music or podcasts playing all the time in the background.
We could hear it. We could, and your head was like.
Yeah, I was trying to finish getting everything. So that's what I look like when nobody is watching.
That's what I look like too.
All right. So how we living, boys and girls?
Pretty great. Doing pretty all right.
All right, today's gonna be pretty interactive. So messing with this. All right. Cool. All right. Okay. Why is it not doing that today? It is being weird. All right. So we're going to start with something very interactive today. If you're not on camera, I want you to do this anyways, but we're going to start with something. All right. So whether you're brand new, okay, or you've been at this for a while, I want you to stand up right now if you've ever closed a sale faster than you thought you could. Let's see it. Anyone? Yes? Yes? Ever in your life, you've never closed a sale faster than you thought you could. If you haven't, it's okay. But
ever, not just with symmetry?
Yeah, ever.
Okay. Well, I'll stand up.
Yes, right? Does that feel good? Yes?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes? That feeling feels good?
Feels good.
Right? So,
super good.
Right, we're 2 weeks from today, conference will be over. Okay. Remember, doubt says it's going to be too short. I'm not going to get everything I need. Belief says it's enough. And remember, every day we're going to choose belief. Okay. So I have a task I want you to do, whether you have pen and paper, like Walnetta does, or or Miss Debbie. So, or you take notes on your phone. I want you to do something right now. I want to know, we talked about a while ago, for those that were in here, about writing a goal of how much money you wanted in your account before conference. All right. So that's still a way. I want you to write down the excuse that's stopping you from hitting your conference goal right now.
Have fun.
Excuse or reason?
What's the difference?
I've heard you can have reasons, but not wait, hold on. I've heard you have reasons, but not excuses, but not both. You have reasons or excuses, but not both, is what I've heard.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I figured you would respond that way. That's why I teed you up with that. Okay. So yes, a reason is, hey, I scratched my cornea like Miss Sandra, and I haven't been able to dial as much because I can't look at a computer screen. That is a reason, right? An excuse is, I'm just not making the dials I should be making. I'm not on the phone putting in the effort and the work that I know I should be making. That's an excuse. And ask yourself, this is for you. This isn't for me. It makes no difference to me, right? Just be honest with yourself. Do I have an excuse in front of me right now? Am I making any excuses? Is the silverware drawer dirty and I went to go clean it out? Is it too busy with my family and I just don't want to make the time later in the day or early in the morning to get my dials in? Okay. Is it, I don't have belief in myself enough to know that I can do it, whatever it is. Right. And then I want you to share that with someone. Okay. It could be your mentor, it could be a friend, it could be your spouse, whoever it is. Just pick someone and share it with them. And right, like we'll talk about it. So we're going to crowdsource these answers. Okay. I'm going to ask a few of you to be brave and talk about what we think that is right now. Like, what do we think is stopping us from getting to where we want to be?
Everybody's gonna answer.
Well, I'll answer. Currently, I have a whole lot of not interested leads, hangups, and callbacks.
Okay. So let's pick on, I'm gonna pick on you a little bit, Lorenzo, but in a good way. Okay.
That's perfectly fine with me.
All right. I'm watching you make your dials. Okay. Do you think you've made enough dials here yet to have the skill set necessary to overcome all of those objections?
No, I'd say no.
Yep, absolutely. Right. So you're, hey, I'm running into this, but that for me as a reason is I'm there. Now I'm watching you track your numbers. Okay. So I'm watching you put in your dials and you're getting there. Would you say to yourself, though, you feel better today than you did last Thursday?
I would, yes.
Right. You're more comfortable on the phone. It's easier to maybe answer an objection.
Correct.
Right. So the magic number here to start with to have in your head is, if you're newer, you need to have made at least 1,000 dials, a 1,000, and run 20 appointments. Okay. Like a new agent, that has to be your goal. Like, don't, and I mean this in the nicest way possible. I want to hear this until you've made 1,000 dials. Gotcha. And I did that in almost a week when I started, because I got told that's the number and let's get after it. I made 700 and I think 57 dials. I have the tracked 57 dials my first week. Like, I just got after it. And guess what? I became more consciously competent quicker than the average person because I put in the effort. Okay. So, right. Like, it's that, hey, I'm getting some not interested. I'm not there. And here is a response I'll share with you. I've taught this a little bit in training before. This is my response, and I make it as a joke, right? So I call you and I'm like, hey, Lorenzo, yeah, hey, this is Trevor. I'm calling you back. You had reached out to us previously about the mortgage protection, right? And I want you to just interrupt me with, oh, yeah, right. Give me the yeah, I'm not interested. Okay. So, hey, I'm calling back, and I want to confirm your age here. I have your current.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
Well, Lorenzo, you have no reason to be. I haven't given you one yet. You ain't even given me a chance for you to be interested yet. Right? And if you say it funny like a smart ass, they're gonna crack a joke. Like, you're naturally, it's there. Great question, China. So it depends. What result do you want? Right? What is your goal? And then let's remap that, right? For my agents that are direct to me, I've sat in front of you, you have our handbook. I've said, sit down and map where you want to be, right? We can't pick a number, okay, and just say, I want to make $1,000 a week. Okay, that's great. But how many dials does that take? How many appointments does that take? You should be making dials to equivalent to what you want your income to be. Those are income producing activities. Okay. I love your name, LA. It says Andrew. That's why I got kicked out of it. But right, like what we're talking about is, and Anna just got to start. So we're talking about, hey, conferences coming up, Ignites next week, Aligns in a week and a half, and what's stopping us from getting to our goals. So, but yeah, Miss China, how many should you make a week? Depends on how much money you want to make. Like, how quick do you want your learning curve to shorten here? All right. If you're doing this full time and you're just starting, you should be making 100 calls a plus a day. If you don't have enough money, trade your time right now for there. Because guess what? Just on pure volume, you're going to find some people that want this, even if you're the worst person ever at this. Like the math says you will naturally found them. Yeah, no, it's all good. I just got touched about it. But right, like it's there. So now, do you believe in the value you bring to your clients? How do you do that? How do you believe in the value? Have you written a policy on yourself or your family? Right? Have you gone to you or your family and said, know what? I better have at least an accidental policy on me to start, right? Even if I don't have a ton of money, and you will get there, okay? Right? We're not chasing cash. If you are chasing cash, you're going to fail, okay? If we follow our core values here, you'll win, right? Massive action, constant correction, right? The things we need to do to get to where we want to grow. So what else? What else is, someone else gave me a question and you asked, is anybody going to talk to you? Notice I sat there and shut up, my favorite word, after I asked a question, because I knew eventually someone would volunteer. So again, I will ask, and I appreciate the vulnerability saying, hey, I'm here, right? But you haven't even dialed a month yet, Lorenzo, and I think you're doing amazing, right? We've already helped you get your first sale, right? You're tracking your numbers every day, right? You're putting in that effort, and you just said it yourself, right? You can believe now that you're better this week than you were last week, right? Like you got to get through the suck here. There's no way. I had a conversation with someone earlier about you can't skip the steps. You can't step getting no-showed. You don't get to skip people not buying when you think they should be. We don't get to skip those actions. So like what else do you think is stopping us from hitting the number we wanted to hit before getting to conference?
Can you hear me
Dedicating the
okay?
proper time.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about that, Miss Trish. So what could you do to make sure you're doing that?
Okay. So just a little bit of background for me. I have been here 4 months.
Okay.
And luckily I have hit a promotion every month and I'm trying to push for my 100%, but I'm also a realtor.
Okay.
And so sometimes work pulls me away from, and I am synonymous to try to schedule my things, as diligently as possible. But I will be honest, Trevor, if a $500,000 client calls me and it's a $15,000 commission, I'm going to show them a house. And so it's like, I stop because I'm going and I need to figure out, yes, I'm part-time, but mentally I'm full-time because I'm recruiting and doing all of that. So and then I'm afraid to call at certain times. I'm just being completely honest.
Yep.
So I'm like, I don't want to call people first thing in the morning when I might have a little bit more time before I have showings. And then sometimes, like lately, last week, I wrote one policy, and for me, that's not good enough. And so just figuring out what are the proper times that maybe are most successful when people will answer and dedicating myself to it.
So first, amazing job getting to where you are. So shout out, right? Fantastic. Love it. Like I'm serious about that. That's something I did when I started, right? I slingshot it every month, right? Boom, boom, boom. Okay. But so here's what I heard you say, and I got a question for you. What made you apply to symmetry and want to learn this, even though you have the real estate thing?
Well, I mean, yeah, I have the real estate thing and I've been doing it for 15 years, but it's not always consistent. So, it started slowing down. This is more of a recession-proof market, whereas, hey, I might not sell a house next month or I might not have a closing next week, but I can, if I'm putting in the right action and work, I can have consistent income every week while I'm waiting on these closings that may or may not happen.
So we've talked about this past, and I'll help you with this. So what I heard is you have a plan, you don't have a strategy.
Mhm.
You plan to make calls, but you don't have a strategy on how you're going to do it. Okay. You plan to get leads, but you don't have the strategy there. So what we need to do is reshape that. So let's talk about, because we have a bunch of new agents on here. There's everybody, some people, the phone weighs 1,000 pounds, or they say, I don't want to be a bother. I think I'm calling at the wrong time. because I feel like that wouldn't be the wrong time for me. Is that probably close to accurately how you feel for dialing at those times?
Yeah, I mean, like, because I guess I put myself in that situation, and maybe I need to take myself out. Because if I look at my phone and it's ringing 8 o'clock in the morning and it's a number that I don't know, then I probably have a greater propensity not to answer, right? So because I look at myself and say that's probably what's going to happen, then I think, well, I don't want to dial at that time.
Okay. Or here's a way to reframe it. You could trust the millions of calls of data that Symmetry has from thousands of agents that tell us when the best time to call is. Which
Yeah.
would be right. And I get it. I've been in your shoes. Right. So it's a reframing our mind. Okay. So you just said, I only sold one policy. It's there. When you make your goal, how do you reverse engineer your objectives and your activities? How do you reverse engineer? Because you can't control the goal. You can't
Right.
control the objectives. All we can control are the activities, those levers. How do you reverse engineer to get there? What are you doing for that?
You mean to make my goals?
Uh-huh.
Well, I have a standing lead order.
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Since I sell real estate, I use my clients also to market to them. Um, and then I also do bonus lead orders at least every weekend. I buy other ones on top of my standing lead order.
Okay. And do you have it on your calendar that you're going to dial at these times?
The morning, no. The evening, yes.
Okay. So that's going to be my challenge to you before conference. Put it on your calendar and commit to it. Don't make a plan to do it. Commit to it and understand that we can't let our fears reshape how clients feel. Okay. We know, just again, we know from the data that the mornings and the evenings and Saturday, 9 to 2, 9 to 1 is the best time to call. We just have the data behind it of when people answer. Okay. We also don't know when it's there. So you might have a bunch of clients that you're trying to call in the afternoon. What if the time they're actually available is in the mornings and your limiting belief right now is keeping you from helping them?
I think that's very valid. I mean, because like last week is like I would dial and dial and dial, and I'm like, I'm not getting anybody to pick up the phone. So I know that I'm gonna have to make an adjustment.
Well, that would be my homework to you is try that. So I'll do that. I will, because you just don't know, right? If I'm calling people in the afternoons and I'm not getting a response, my whole goal is to resolve every lead. Okay. A no is a resolution. I'm fine with
Right.
this because I need enough no's to get to yes. But if they're not answering in the evening, I might call in the morning, right? What if they're, example, I just helped a night shift nurse. Okay. She gets off at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? She actually wants to answer the phone at 8 o'clock before she goes to sleep because that's her 7 o'clock at night, right? She don't want to answer the phone at 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon because she's just getting ready to go there. Like those sides of things. It just depends on their schedule. So give them the opportunity to help protect them first, right? Because remember, we're serving families, and then I will encourage you to commit to what led you here and why you're building already is you see the upside, right? I heard it in there. And what I also heard is you want your time back, right? Like you want your time. Well, how do we get there? We get there by understanding what your why is in there. So I encourage you to take like what that is, text it to your mentor and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need to get here and I want to make a strategy, not a plan, right? Plans don't do us any good. Only strategies do. So next challenge. All right. So today is Thursday. All right. I want everybody to pick a goal to have done by Monday. Okay. And I want you to pick either how many calls you're going to make, how many sales you're going to make, or how much APV you're going to place by Monday. Because winners win. Okay. And everybody in this room is a winner. But if you don't have a goal and a target, you can't aim there. And then text it to someone that will hold you accountable, right? And say, hey, I'm texting this to you because I want to be held accountable to this, right? I'm committing to doing this, okay? This is my commitment, and it's to yourself. You're not committing to them. So it's there, right? And then how can we do, and what can we do to get to those goals, right? What are some things we all know we could be doing in order to get to that?
You asking or rhetorical?
I'm asking.
Oh,
Resources.
Yes, this is
Schedule.
interactive. This is participation.
Call 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Resources, right? We got to have leads. Correct. Okay. We got to call multiple times a day. Yep. That's another one.
Goes back to having a schedule.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Having a schedule, right? Making sure we're there. Absolutely. Like that makes a difference.
If you're struggling, ask for help.
Yep.
Feedback and so forth.
Yep. So, for sure. Could you find someone to practice and role play with if you're still working on getting good at either dialing or making the presentation?
Yeah.
Is that something we could do too? Right?
Yes,
Can we
certainly.
grab somebody and say, hey, let's role play this. Let's work on this. I need to get better. It's repetition. It's there. So, right. It's a working out, right? If you're trying to be a professional bodybuilder, but you never do leg day, right? Are you going to be able to be a professional bodybuilder? Probably not, right? You're going to look, as we like to call them, you're going to look top heavy, right? You're going to look really good from the waist up, and then you're going to fall over because you don't have that base, right? This is about building that base and what we can do to do that, right? And then mindset, right? What are we putting into here every day? Okay. You have to change what you are filtering here and here and here. Who you are around, who you talk to, what you listen to, right? When you're walking to the house, right? Listen to Jim Larson talk about, every time I've heard him talk, he talks about when he's walking around, he just has an audible book playing. He has a podcast playing instead of just, music only that's not going to help him, right? And he said, hey, what if I miss some of it? That's okay. Do you think the little bit, even if he retains it, is getting him better? Right? Like, think about that side of it. But we all, I know most of the people on the call here want to be able to build and or are building, right? Well, we need money to fund that with. Well, how do we fund that? We fund that by selling. So, how do we help you there? How do we get you going? Okay. So that side of it. It's there. So, and you might be like, hey, like I'm in a position, I don't have a ton of cash right now. Okay, well, you have time, right? And I can say for most of you, if you have a mentor that really sees you putting in the work, most mentors are going to help support you and help you try to get in front of clients. Okay. For those that are on here, I think pretty much everybody's mentor here. So I can confidently say that. But how are we doing that? Okay. So those are some things we can do. Then are you like running apps live, right? And what do I mean by running apps live? Have you really sat down and found someone to do like a practice application on, right? To say, hey, I want to do this. You don't, right? Like you don't have to hit submit, right? But figure out the process, right? Are you going into an appointment blind, right? Are you going into an appointment without ever practicing it and just winging it? Would you do that for anything else in your life? Would you do that for anything else? Anyone? No. Right? We can all probably confidently say we wouldn't. So why are we doing that here?
Hey, Trevor, Scott's training when I started used to we used to do mock presentations.
Yep.
And I loved that.
Mm.
I mean, practicing the presentation and then going right to the application. It it made me confident because I was so not confident with dialing, but I was very confident with doing a presentation
Okay.
through the, so, that's another thing to think about too, is just like Trevor said, have somebody to practice with, or to just do a presentation on, even if it's your spouse or your child or your mentor or your running buddy. Just somebody, and go through that presentation. If it's a running buddy, then you can just like critique each other. And if it's a mentor, he can show you where, he or she can show you where you need to just tweak things a little bit. But that really helped me with the presentation part of it. And also, like, I think it was James Johnson, I don't call it dialing, I call having conversations. That's what's in my calendar. It's having conversations, because dialing is like a word that just triggers fear for me. So
So I love it. So I'm going to give you something you can do to help with this, and you can do it day by day. In the morning, when you're ready to start dialing, go into your team chat, okay? And write down, make a pledge. Okay, it's a pledge because you're pledging to yourself you're going to do it. Pledge how many calls you're going to make that day. Go in, don't just post DCAs afterwards. Hold yourself accountable and say, hey, I pledge to myself that I'm going to make 50 calls today, 100 calls today, 500 calls today. I don't care what the number is, okay? Whatever that looks like and you're committing to, go into there and say, I am pledging to myself that I'm going to make this many calls. Do you think that would help? Do you think that will help hold yourself more accountable? Yes. So this is something I've been like holding on to for a little bit, that I really want to like get everybody start doing, because I've used it in the past in my prior businesses. And that's what we do in the mornings. We have we're circling up. Hey, I'm going to make 100 phone calls today. Or, hey, I'm going to set 5 appointments today, and I'm not stopping till I set 5. I pledge to do that, and put it in your chat. I don't, whatever you guys use, put it in there and say, this is what I'm doing today. And then post it at the end of the day. How good will you feel when you achieve that and make that win? Do you think that'll help improve your mindset and help you reframe how dialing feels? Yeah. Yes. Anyone? Bueller?
Scary.
Bueller? Yeah. What's that?
I think it'll make it a little intimidating, but because because you're telling everybody what you're gonna do, and you do have to you are holding yourself accountable. So it's a little scary if you set your number too high. If you set your number too low, it's like, what are you even doing this for?
Exactly.
Yeah, I would hop in there and say, like, we have an accountability call every morning too, and there's never like a, oh, you didn't do it type thing. Like, I mean, sometimes things come up. We're all human. So I mean, it's like, hey, I didn't get to it today, or shoot, my kid got sick at school. I mean, shit comes up that we all can't get to. I find it as more of like I don't know, just it does help me focus a little bit more, and to just kind of put it out there. Like, I put 500 dials before. That's what I did immediately. I put it in the chat because that holds me accountable, to say, did I do it, next week when I see some of you guys are on this call, or, but I would say don't let it intimidate you, Lorenzo. I mean, if things come up, things come up. That's the best thing about symmetry is us like lifting each other up, in all of the different moments.
Gotcha.
For sure. It's and it's that, right? It's, hey, I'm gonna and it's not just how many dials you're gonna make, right? Hey, I'm gonna read 20 pages in this book today, and then let everyone know, hey, I did that, right? Hey, I wanted to listen to this podcast today, I did it. Or, hey, I wanted to role play, right? Like Sandra and Brandy said, hey, we're going to spend 15 minutes today, 20 minutes working on the presentation with each other and role play. we're going to pledge to do that today, and then help you achieve that goal, right? Because as you put that in there, we're going to be helping each other succeed, right? Like it feels good. Not only we win, it feels good to see other people win, correct? We like seeing people post their DCAs. We like seeing people post that they helped a family and talk about, oh, hey, this is how I overcome it. That's fun, right? How much fun will it be to be able to say, hey, I set this goal in front of me to reshape, like you're thinking, Lorenzo. I set this goal in front of me and I achieved it today. And guess what? Sometimes we're going to miss it. It's okay. But you can't achieve it if you don't believe it and set it out in front of you. Right. And what it's also going to do is help you, teach you how to set achievable goals. Right. You get people that come in and say, I'm going to sell $5,000 a week out of the gate. They've never done this before. That's probably not an achievable goal. That's probably pretty unrealistic. But what's a realistic goal? Hey, I can make 75 dials today. That's, that might be for you a realistic goal. Hey, I can attend a sales training today. I'm a pledge to do that today. That's a realistic goal. So it's about reframing how we look at it and then holding ourselves accountable to that, right? Like holding ourselves accountable as we go down the road. Because, right, like think of it in terms of like social proof, right? You're seeing the social proof that this works, right? We see leaderboards, right? We see new ready to writes coming in if you're a builder. We see, hey, this agent, these top 10 agents produce this week, right? Confidence soars with authority and reciprocity. Like your confidence will soar with those things, okay? But doubt also crumbles under scarcity and proof, right? Scarcity, hey, I'm getting rid of that scarcity mindset that I can't pick up this phone and make those calls. And proof, I achieved it today, right? The proof is I actually achieved it, And whether it's, hey, I have 2 hours to dial today or I have an hour, it doesn't matter what it is for you. Don't say, hey, I'm doing this on this schedule. I have to be this person. It needs to be, authentically set to what is yours. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, and we can do that now. Let's talk about like when we're in appointments. Okay. When we're in appointments, right? Are we there listening to our clients? Okay. We get so concerned about what we think we should be doing instead of listening to them. So we need to make sure we listen way more than we speak. Okay. And sure, when you first start, we got to explain it to them. But again, comfortably learning how to ask them the questions and letting them feel and understand that pain point. Okay. And give you an example, like a gentleman, Dela, who works during, so example, Dela works during the day. She's a newer agent. She has a legit, she's a RBT, therapist. So she's working from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. She literally is with clients all day. She can't get out. So when we were done, but she's working, she's grinding from like 5:15 to 9, 10 o'clock at night every day. I'm watching her do it. She just got her second sale in a week. Okay. And she figured out the guy's why. Like when it first started, she was looking at, just a small, $200,000 mortgage on his house. Turns out the guy owns a trucking business and just had a son. And we put $1 million in coverage on him because he's only 30 to start. And we're going to pivot him into a big old DFL now. He's got a ton of money to invest. He's putting like 50 grand a year extra towards his house. Well, we're going to show him how that's going to make him an insane amount of money. But if you want to ask those questions, you can't do it. We get so concerned with, I know this is a good thing, but if the client doesn't know it's a good thing, it doesn't matter, right? We can know it all day. So we use social proof in order to do that. So absolutely, exactly, Francis, that is well said, right? If all your questions are yes or no, it can't be. It has to be, hey, tell me why that's important to you. Okay. Share with me why protecting them would make a difference in your life. Do you know, like so many people know it now. And this guy, part of the reason was his sister, who was 38, had thyroid cancer last year. And she didn't have any policies, nothing with living benefits. And so when we started asking about that, have you ever heard of living benefits? Kind of, no, explain it to me. He goes, wait, that's real, right? And meanwhile, if we wouldn't have asked that, yeah, because he knows, he just watched his 38-year-old sister get thyroid cancer and not be able to work, right? And have to have her thyroid removed. So now he has $1 million worth of coverage at LGA that he has access to almost 90% of that in living benefits if forbid he got sick and couldn't take care of his family. But we wouldn't have known that if we didn't reframe that question. So sitting down and role playing and doing that is just like the utmost importance on how we frame, right? So what else can you do in that presentation that we've talked about before? What can we do in that presentation to help like facilitate that?
Say exactly that. And what else?
Yep. Tell me more about that.
More about.
Yeah,
Well-
Spin Selling, great book. That is if you look in our Tipton Agency handbook, that's one of our core books. Okay. We generally recommend people start with Go for No. If you've never been in sales, reshape your brain about how you think about no, and then going from there. Okay. And then really understanding how we can do that. Okay. Are you trying to find the problem, right? What happens if you're not here, right? What happens if you're not there? And let them answer. Don't give them the answer. Too many times we give them the answer to the question because we want to help people. You have to learn to be uncomfortable with, is your equity really going to be protected if something were to happen? Another question I like to ask, have you been on Facebook and seen a GoFundMe for someone in the last year? 95% of Americans could say yes to that, especially clients that we're talking to. Okay. Ask them that question and remind them that that's not life insurance. Do you want your family to be in that position? When we're dealing with mortgage protection, right? If we sold your home today, if it's not a brand new A-Lead and you just got it, and heck, sometimes even these days I got it, you know, what's the equity in your home? Okay. And I also run in, is this help for me? Also, we want to protect your income. That's great. The house is paid off. Okay. What happens if you don't have your income for a year or 2 years? What would your husband do and the kids do? What would your wife and the kids do? What would your spouse, whoever, your partner, whoever it is, what would they do without your income? Would it be difficult for them? It's there. Don't make it just about paying off the house. Show them how we can help them protect their income too. That is a major pivot I take advantage of because most people aren't willing to have that conversation. How much you make a year? 150 grand. Okay. How long is your spouse going to last without your $150,000 a year? Right? How long will they last without it? And get them to really think about it. 6 months from now, if you haven't been able to work because you have cancer, okay, or you had a heart attack, what's your financial outlook going to look like? Are you asking those questions? And if you're not, you're probably not closing as many sales as you should be, right? If you're not asking them how those things would look and reshaping their brain to get them to understand this happens every day. Like, guys, Mutual of Omaha paid out in 2023 and 2024. They paid out more money in living benefits than they did in death benefits. And that's just one company. Now, they're a big ass company, so that's a lot of money when you think about it. But think about that. Mutual of Omaha, one of the biggest carriers in the world, paid more money in living benefits than they did in death benefits. Okay. So when we're talking to our families that are 55, 60 and under, right, those things really matter to them, especially the younger families that are working. Okay. We have to think about that. So, and then we really want to look at, you know, is sales about us or is sales about them?
About them.
How many times do we think we make it about us though? Do we really think we're solving their problem or are we pushing a product? Ask yourself that question in the appointment. Am I just trying to get a product to them or am I solving their problem? And that's how you will close more sales. If you're not solving their problem, that's why they're not interested. You haven't solved their problem. Okay. Right. I talked about the not interested all the time, right? I say that. That is my just key response. For those who weren't here there, I'll say it again. When I'm starting the call, if they say, hey, I'm not interested, absolutely, Lauren, you shouldn't be interested. I haven't given you anything to be interested about yet, but I'm going to, right? And I'm going to say it funny like a smart ass to get a chuckle out of them. So learning how to touch that side. Yep. So I love that question. Absolutely, Francis, right? What's the most you've seen raised? Okay. How long would that last you? Do you want to be in that position? Right? What if you were on that plane on that? I'll bring up the Delta thing that just happened. What if you're on that plane and slipped upside down and you didn't make it, right? It looks like they're all going to be okay, but we don't know, right? We're not promised tomorrow. And we don't do enough pain prodding in there. So focus on their why, not your commission. Okay. If you focus on their why and not the commission, right? And remember, sell what they need, not what pays the most. Pretty please. Right? Do I want the unicorn of the best product with the best commission? Absolutely. Right? We always want that, but it's not always the right thing. Anna, what a great story to share. Hey, my friend was going to literally be on that flight. Right? My friend was going to be on that flight. What would you have done if it's there? Right now, I still use New Orleans on New Year's Eve. Guys, it's only in the middle of February. Hey, if you were out on New Orleans on New Year's Eve, those 15 people didn't go out there that night on New Year's Eve and think they weren't going to wake up the next morning. Not one of them thought that. Okay. You have to get to their why and ask, don't guess. All right. Here is one of my favorite go-to questions. Hey, Sandra, what keeps you up at night? And let them answer, right? And then I might start with, hey, is it your mortgage? Is it the kids? Is it making sure your family's okay? That's your hook, right? What keeps you up at night, right? Do you have anything that keeps you up at night? You know, do you ever let yourself think about what would you do without that income? Right? And remember, confidence isn't loud, it's calming, guys, right? Your confidence in what we can do, even as a brand new agent, you know 100 times more than they do. They have not passed a state licensing exam. They haven't gone through the training you've gone through. Even as a brand new agent, they haven't gone through that, okay? Act as if, right? You know, the whole thing. You have to act as if. One of like my favorite, you know, sales movies of all time is Boiler Room. Like, I love that movie from a, even though some of it's completely unrealistic, but the Ben Affleck scenes I like, right? Act as if you've done this 100 times. They don't know whether you've done this 100 times or not. But if you don't act as if you have, they're going to feel like you haven't. Well, how do you act that way? You also practice, okay? There's a reason the best athletes in the world have the best work ethic and practice the most. You don't hear about people stopping practice just because they're good at something. One of the reasons I love doing this training is this is also forcing me to practice. This is forcing me to create course curriculum. This is forcing to look at me, to look at my processes every week, right? This is helping hold me accountable. I like doing this. So I'm thankful to all of you for this, right? It's forcing me to get better so I can help others get better. But if you don't walk in like we won the InsurTech Award because we have the best technology in the industry, we do, right? There's a reason we're on the Forbes list and no one else is, okay? Like, there's a reason we have carriers creating products for us that no one else has. There's no other IMOs that have the products that Legal in General are giving us, that UHL are giving us. Those are quality term products, quality secure products. Those are made for us. Walk in there confidently, knowing that we're not shitty ass Globe Life, right? How do I know that? Because I've called Globe Life and said I was trying to get insurance for my mom, and I figured out what they do, right? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever gone to be able to be a competitor and figure it out? I have. I've done that to all the other companies. I know what they charge. I've used it and said, hey, take a look at that. So I know what they're trying to do. I know who the bottom feeders are. I know we have access to that. But if you don't act like that, they won't feel like that. Okay. So also keep it simple, right? Don't use like big words. And we talked about this, with our pace and tone, right? Like if you haven't watched that one, we just did a couple weeks ago, go watch the pace and tone video, slow it down. Do you think clients need insurance school, or do you think they need clarity?
Clarity.
Clarity, right? We probably all agree they need clarity. Okay. Honest communication. Do you think it makes more sense to say, hey, this is a 30-year term product with riders? Or does it say, hey, we're going to protect your mortgage and make sure you have income if something were to happen to you? Which do you think you would want to hear as a client?
The second one.
The latter.
Number two, right? But if you're not practicing that, you can't get good at it. Okay. Right. So if you're not there, we can't get you there. So those are the questions you have to reshape, like in those situations. All right. So we got 10 minutes left. I want to leave the floor open. If anybody's got any cases, going through anything, they want to study anything, they got any questions, I try to give a couple minutes for that.
I was just gonna add, if you're pushing, if you feel like you're pulling teeth to get or your client or prospect to respond, you're probably doing it wrong. I have a lot of those. Research shows that people don't like to be sold to, right? The best approach is to educate, and not in a way like you were just talking about, but in a way where you're providing clarity on things that they heard or think or assume, right? And so you can provide clarity by educating, and so that way they can make a sound decision on what they're purchasing. You have a lot less buyer's remorse when you educate them through the process and using clear language that is not internal jargon.
I agree. Right? Just because we know what a word means, it doesn't, like, Trish, I'll pick on you for a second example. You have nomenclature you use in real estate, okay? That's to you normal words, but isn't the same, is it the same? So like, remember that here too. We might have words that are very common to us that aren't common to a client. Okay. Remember that when you're talking to them.
I'm going to add about confidence outside of practicing, because you want to fail with a colleague, you don't want to fail with the client, right? So once you practice, one of the things that has really helped me in the past was to learn along with your client. So they don't know that you're still learning, you're just telling them and you're showing them, but in reality, you're also learning. So that you can get more confident. I do that all the time. Like, well, let me show you what we have here. And then I read whatever it is I'm reading. And on my end, I'm like, okay, I can remember this. So then 1 or 2 appointments later, I'm a lot more confident and I'm actually talking more through the presentation. So I kind of used to learn together, but they don't know that you're also learning.
100%. All right. Nobody's got any other questions? We're going to wrap it up.
I do have one.
All right. We got it. Let's go, Miss M.
Okay, so I've had, several people tell me, even after I was reading the script and everything, like earlier I got a guy's age or date of birth, whatever, and he said that he already got life insurance his whole life, and he really doesn't want to go through the whole process of getting insurance again. And I try to, I talk to him a little bit, but I don't know, like at which point when they say I'm not interested, do you just need to stop before you get too pushy?
That's a little bit of art and a little bit of science. Some of that, you know, you're going to learn from making more calls. Okay. And so it's also about reshaping that. So when they say that, what I would say is, well, if I can get you the same amount of coverage for less money, or get you more coverage, like, so example, we did this week. We got someone 20% more coverage for the same amount of money they were currently paying. Would that be something that would be interested to you? Yes. Well, most of our products are simplified issue now, and I generally can do applications in anywhere from 7 to 15 minutes. It's not as painful as it used to be, where we have to go fill out a paper app and, you know, fax it in and, you know, like explaining along those sides of things. So now that you've heard that, right, next time you can turn around and ask those questions, right? Hey, I offer to do free policy reviews for my clients, and I'll take a look at it, see if it would make sense for us to even have that conversation. Do you think that's something that'd be worth your time?
Okay, that makes sense. I did ask him if he'd feel more comfortable knowing that he would have that life insurance plus something, more insurance to pay his mortgage, so that he wouldn't have to worry about that. And yeah, that's when he told me, you know, he just didn't want to go through that whole getting insurance process again.
Right.
I don't know
So
why.
do you think you were asking him questions, or do you think you were talking to him?
I don't know. I mean, I was just trying to convince him, I guess.
I understand. So you just said it. There you go. So you were trying to convince him instead of asking him questions to get to his why. So that's right. The skill set, and why we're here, you're going to start learning, right? We want to ask questions to get to their why. It doesn't do any good to convince them. You're not going to have clients that stay if they're there. Okay. You're convincing them is no help. That's not your job, isn't to convince them ever. Your job is to ask them questions so they understand what they're getting and it helps them. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, I mean, I even explained the protection just a little bit in more detail, but yeah, I mean, I definitely have to take that into account and not do what I did earlier.
But yeah, but that's, you're learning. So for those that don't know, Emily's a brand new agent. She's only been here a few weeks. So remember that, you know, that's why you're here. So we can train, so we can learn and do those kind of things. Absolutely. Yep. That is one of my favorite statements, Miss Sandra, right? A person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. Totally agree. So, right, I'm never trying to convince somebody to do this. That's how you get chargebacks. So I want them to understand their why, and I wanted to have it be so it helps them and their family. So remember, telling's not selling.
Trevor, can I add something there? Because I think the question is, if you just think, be a little bit of a detective, I think, because everyone is going to make a decision based on what is their highest value. And that's what we don't know what that is. We can't assume it's ours. Some people, I like analogies, food, it could be taste, it could be budget, it could be convenience. Those are all very different things. And you will make different decisions based on what your highest values are. You know, with this guy, right? There's an underlying assumption. He doesn't want to deal with the hassle. What's the underlying assumption? What is that? Right? What is he assuming? He said it, right?
Take a long time.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because guess what? He has a whole life policy. And if it's anything significant, that's fully underwritten. That's his assumption. So we want to make sure people aren't basing their decisions on inaccurate assumptions. Okay. And it could just be like, oh, well, you have, you know, and it's just like knowing this, but understanding it's being able to discover what is their mind. Just think about this really simply. An example of each of you here, the boy walked the dog. All right. Very simple, not complicated. All right. If you ask each of us, what did the boy look like? How many of us think we're going to have the exact same picture?
I doubt it.
Right? Okay. So that's the same thing. Like we are all operating under different assumptions because guess what? We have different experiences. We have different learning thing. His experience with life insurance, fully underwritten, agreed, pain in the butt. Right? That's why he was making a decision based on this, thinking, guess what? Because he doesn't know. This is the same thing. Right? And if you say, oh, it's like, oh, did you have the kind that you had to do the full blood exam and it took a while, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, yeah, that's not the kind that we do. We have simplified issue. If you have 10 minutes, blah, 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 we can get you qualified for up to 2 million. 10 minutes. Okay. So it's just more discovering where there's a disconnect. Guess what? In any communication, we're just basing decisions based on our highest values. One note. And then recognizing, even if we use the exact same words, we're not having the same conversation. Okay. It could help, hint, hint, in relationships as well. Okay. So.
Thank you. That helps a lot. I feel a little, I don't know, like, oh, I should have done that, but I didn't know. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And if I could share this, Trevor, kind of following up on that, one thing that I heard a while back in a different sales training was state of fact, followed by a question, followed by a question. So what I heard you say is, you think that the process of getting more life insurance is going to take a long time. What if I told you this? Would you be this? Or, state something they've already said and then ask 2 questions as follow-up. And that, but that's hard to remember sometimes too, but that always works. Kind of what Linda said, going off of that, just ask more questions.
Be that detective, go out there, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys. I'm dating myself, but you know what I mean. Okay. Booze Clues. I don't know what you're thinking, whatever, okay. So go out and help some families.
Thanks.